response to the abiotic factor, that thermoregulation. Need to discuss about the regulate. As I do remember you once again, the regulate, which means homeothermic animals are having this kind of property that regulate. That means they are going to regulate the body temperature. Their body temperature is going to be constant. The constant body temperature, irrespective of atmospheric temperature, which we can say regulate or homeothermic or warm-blooded animals. We can say them as homeothermic or warm-blooded animals. Okay, so how do they regulate that body temperature? The regulation of the body temperature, the constant body temperature is possible in the homeothermic animals is because of energy, expenditure of the energy. For example, if the human body temperature is 37 degrees centigrade, if the body temperature rises, the expenditure is going to be the water, the sweat, and they regulate the body temperature. If the body temperature falls down below the 37 degrees centigrade, the expenditure is going to be ATP. That means by muscle contraction, shivering we use it to say, and liver also break the glucose molecules to get the energy. Liver produces the heat, and muscle contraction makes the production of heat. So that means with these, you try to understand these particular lines given here. Thermoregulation is energetically expensive, especially for small animals. Okay, but for all the organisms of aves and mammalia, that in case of aves and mammalia, the regulate is a condition which gives expenditure of sweat when temperature rises, expenditure of energy when temperature down. Okay, so it was announced that the thermoregulation energetically expensive, okay, for all, but especially for small animals like shrews and hummingbirds. They are very small animals, which they are saying they can't tolerate this expenditure. They have a larger surface area relative to their volume. So they lose body heat very fast when it is cold outside. So then they have to expend much energy to generate the body heat. Therefore, very small animals are rare in polar regions. To understand this particular phenomena, we need to know the Bergman's rule. What Bergman says. Bergman explained about the volume and surface area. He generalized the homeothermic animals, that volume and surface area. He said that in case of tropics, let's go to the whiteboard to understand this particular phenomena. In case of tropics and temperate region, let's take more colder region, that is poles. Okay, the volume and surface area, that volume of homeothermic animals and surface area of homeothermic animals. When we discuss this, we'll able to understand that how it become expensive. So volume of organisms at pole, volume of organisms at surface area of the organisms at pole. Okay, so how it related to the thermoregulation? That means you should understand, if the volume is more, organism can produce more heat. That you need to understand. That volume is equally proportional to the production of heat. That you have to understand. Okay, so volume is equally proportional to the production of heat. If volume is more, equally proportional to the heat, proportional to the heat production. So that we need to understand. Volume is equally proportional to the heat production. So in tropics already heat is there. The temperature is enough good. So that's why what we can expect here, in the tropics, the homeothermic animal size should be less. Next, surface area. More surface area, more loss of heat. Less surface area, less loss of heat. So that means, what do you say? Surface area is equally proportional to the Loss of heat. Surface area equally proportional to the loss of heat. That you have to understand. Okay, so in that, the tropical region, a homeothermic animal, a warm-blooded animal living in the tropics is what kind of problem they have? They should lose the heat because outside temperature is so high. Okay, so the surface area should be, volume should be, the tropics organism volume should be less, but surface area should be more. So finally, we are declaring the homeothermic animals who are living in homeothermic animals who are living in the tropics, the volume should be less and surface area should be more. We are declaring like this. This is Bergman's rule. Then homeothermic animals at poles and the temperate regions. Homeothermic animals or warm-blooded animals are regulate. Those who are living in the poles, their volume should be more because they are living in the colder region. That's why the production of heat should be more. So that's why volume should be more and surface area is less. This is Bergman's rule. This is a Bergman's rule. Okay, now let us try to understand that given lines here that they have larger surface area relative to their volume. The hummingbirds and shrews, their volume is less and surface area more. In case of hummingbirds and small sized mammal, small sized homeothermic animal. So what is given? The small sized homeothermic animal, the volume is less, surface area is more. You see here where it is suitable, less volume, more surface area, less volume, more surface area, suitable for tropical living in the case of small sized animals. So that's why we are going to say at poles there is no possibility of these kind of small sized animals will face a lot of problem there. That's why we'll find less number of animals. That means we are explaining this particular issue based on the Bergman's rule. Bergman said this. So even you don't remember the Bergman, but his rule to be remembered over to understand the text sentences here. Bergman's rule we use it to say this is a Bergman's rule. Okay, so that's about the responses to the abiotic factors and the two things to be remembered. The regulate homeothermic animals. That see the graph once check out the graph here. The red line indicates that irrespective of any body temperature, any atmospheric temperature, body temperature is going to be that constant. Whatever the external level, internal level is going to be constant. That is regulate. Now you see the conformers, about the conformers, you see this green line, conformers, that what is external level, that depends on the, that means whatever the internal level depends on the external level. That means they don't regulate, they don't change their body temperature along with the extra atmospheric temperature. The body temperature is going to be changed over, they don't pay any effort. Okay, so they are not going to pay any effort here in this particular case. Okay, 99% of the animals and nearly all plants cannot maintain a constant internal environment. Is that we said now. Aves and mammals are only maintaining the body temperature constant. So their body temperature or osmotic concentration change with the surrounding condition. That's why we call them as conformers. Yes, in case of aquatic animals, osmotic concentration of the body fluids changes with that of ambient osmotic concentration. Okay, and the particular aquatic animals are having their own adaptations. So what these conformers do, mostly conformers, what they do when extreme temperatures come, or those who cannot tolerate even in the regulate like birds, many animals like birds move away temporarily from stressful habitat to a more hospitable area and return when stressful period is over. So example, we have the during winter, Keladio National Park, Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. We used to say the Rajasthan, it located it. Hosts migratory birds coming from Siberia and other extremely cold northern regions. So now the doubt may come over. The birds are actually homeothermic animals. So why they are showing migrate? So that means whatever the conditions present outside, they are intolerable there. and they require more energy to the expenditure of more energy they have to spend to stay there. So that's why they migrate. In bacteria, suspend, we say, in bacteria, fungi, and lower plants, thick walled spores help to survive unfavorable condition. Whenever the suitable conditions are appeared, they germinate again. In higher plants, seeds and some vegetative reproductive structures serve to tide over periods of stress by reducing their metabolic activity. They germinate under favorable moisture and temperature. We have some animal examples. Hibernation of bears during winter, estivation of some snails and fishes during summer, the diapa, the stage of suspended development of many zooplanktons in lakes and ponds, and we know the story of frog. That also go for hibernation and estivation. Adaptations, various kinds of adaptations we have in the organisms. Adaptation is the morphological, physiological, and behavioral attribute. For what? Which enable the organism to survive and reproduce in its habitat. The many adaptations have evolved over a long evolutionary time, and they are genetically fixed even. That will the character, that evolutionary character, adaptive characters are coming to the next generations also. If we have some examples, adaptations of the kangaroo rat in North American deserts. The internal fat oxidation gives water as a byproduct. If there is no external source of water, what they do, they break fat. They break the fat and they get water from there. They break the fat and they get the water. Next, they have a greater ability to concentrate the urine so that the minimal volume of water is used to remove excretory product. And the well-known adaptations of the desert plants. You can see the opentia on the screen. Presence of thick cuticle and leaf surface, not to lose the water from the body. And their stomata are arranged in deep pits to minimize water loss through transpiration. A special photosynthetic pathway, crossylation acid metabolism pathway, we use it to say CAM metabolism, that enables their stomata to remain closed during daytime. They open only during night time for the to leave the water. That means the stomata, to protect the water loss, that crossylation acid metabolism pathway they have enables their stomata to remain closed during daytime. Desert plants like opentia have no leaves. You can see here, they reduce it to spines, and photosynthesis is done by stems. Adaptations of mammals. The mammals from the colder climates have shorter ears, limbs to reduce heat loss. That is called Allen's rule. Let's take out a general rule of the Allen's. We'll learn first. The Allen classified it as three regions: tropical and temperate and poles. Let's talk about them. Tropical, temperate, and poles. He's just talked about extremities. That means ear, tail, snout, likewise. We'll take ear as an example. We know that because of Bergman's rule, more surface area, more loss of heat. More surface area, more loss of heat. So that's why tropical region, due to the higher temperatures, that ears of the particular organism, they need to lose the heat from the body, isn't it? So that's why their ears are much larger in size. When it comes to the temperate region, the size of the ears is reduced. That is not to lose the heat from the body. And the poles, the ears are very much minimized. The size of the ears is much reduced here. Why? Not to lose the heat from the body. So try to understand the difference here. Why the tropics, animals living in the tropics, their ears are larger in size. That is to lose the heat from the body because their external environment with the huge temperature. So that's why they should lose the heat from the body. Then in the poles, why the small ears they have are very reduced, very smaller in size. Why they have? That's so simple to say, not to lose the heat from the body because that is a very much colder reason, isn't it? So that is Allen's rule to be remembered. That we have an example. The mammals from colder climates have shorter ears and limbs to reduce the heat loss. Next, aquatic mammals like seals have a thick layer of fat, blubber, we use it to say, below their skin that acts as an insulator and reduces the loss of body heat. And we have some physiological and biochemical adaptations, archaebacteria, which are found in the hot springs and deep sea hydrothermal vents where the temperature is more than 100 degrees centigrade. Many fish thrive in Antarctic waters where the temperature is below 0 degrees centigrade. Many marine invertebrates and fishes live at great depths in the ocean where the pressure is more than 100 times in the normal atmospheric pressure. We know that in the case of ocean, for every 10 meters, one atmospheric pressure is going to be increased over. That means that external atmosphere which we are living is 1 atmosphere. In case of ocean, for every 1 meter, 10 for every 10 meters, 1 atmosphere is going to be increased over. So that means at 1 kilometer range, when you go into the ocean in the deeper, that nearly that 100 atmospheric pressure, if a human being goes there, in that pressure, human will blast out. That what we mean, how the remaining organisms are living there. So simple. That's what we are talking about. Many marine invertebrates and fishes live at a great depths in the ocean where the pressure is more than 100 times than the normal atmospheric pressure. They have the specific adaptation to survive in that particular high pressure conditions. Going up now at high altitude places that where the more than 3,500 meters, we feel altitude sickness. Its symptoms are nausea, heart palpitation, fatigue. Why? This is due to low atmospheric pressure. So the body does not get enough oxygen. We have to discuss this. Let's take a small conclusion here. We'll take the small information about this, that higher altitudes, how does that particular pressure. We have some application questions here. You may get as a weightage as a breathing and exchange of gases are from here. So let's talk about. We know atmospheric pressure is 760 mm of Hg. In general way, we use it to say. For 100% gases, atmospheric pressure is 760 mm of Hg. 21%, oxygen occupies 21% here, isn't it? 21%. For 21%, how much we can expect? 159 mm of Hg. That means at on the earth, we say at oxygen partial pressure is going to be 159 mm of Hg. Okay. Now we are going to the altitude, 3,500 meters above. What happens? Atmospheric pressure is going to be as much as low. I just am giving an example here. For example, atmospheric pressure is there, 380 mm of Hg. That means for 100% gases, atmospheric pressure is 380 mm of Hg. There even will find 21% oxygen, no doubt about that. There even we have 21% oxygen. But you see, when atmospheric pressure reduced, in that the 21% oxygen which is present there is also going to be reduced over. That means how much we have? Half, 80 mm of Hg. Okay. So that means we know that at 104, nearly 104 mm of Hg or 95 mm of Hg. That okay, that we'll discuss in breathing and exchange. So certain oxygen partial pressure is required over for the binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. Okay, the complete saturation of oxygen with hemoglobin required some oxygen partial pressure. We used to say 95 mm of Hg is required, nearly 95 to 100. Okay, but here we have less oxygen partial pressure, isn't it? So that's why the total hemoglobin cannot bind with. That means saturation is not happen, that we are talking. This much oxygen partial pressure is not sufficient for the binding of oxyhemoglobin. So that means less oxygen transport is going to be happening here because of less oxygen partial pressure, because of low atmospheric partial pressure. We take the screenshot of this. That is because it's very, very important concept, this one. So low oxygen partial pressure. Don't say don't low oxygen percentage. Oxygen percentage is always same. But low atmospheric pressure makes low oxygen partial pressure. Low oxygen partial pressure makes incomplete saturation of the oxygen with hemoglobin. So, what is the solution for this? We have a solution. That means if we have 5 million RBC at the normal condition, these people will have 8 million RBC or 9 million RBC. That means they have more number of RBC. They increased the number of RBC to transport this particular oxygen. We call this condition as polycythemia. So the question will be asked in the same manner. Polycythemia is normal in the people who are living in the mountain ranges. Why the polycythemia is very normal in the people? Polycythemia is disease for us in general and the general normal places where people are living. But in high altitude, in the high mountain ranges, polycythemia is a compensation to transport the more number of oxygen because of under low pressure we can't fulfill that each hemoglobin should carry 4 oxygen molecules generally, but here it is carrying only 2 oxygen molecule if it is. So that we should increase the number of RBC. So increasing number of RBC. Here we are not going to say like that. When you visit the place, immediately your RBC number will increase. But we are talking about the people who are living there. Those people who are living, adapted to live there, the polycythemia is going to be a normal condition there. What about the people who visit there? That means the tourists that are in the high mountain ranges. That's what we are talking about. The symptoms are nausea, heart palpitation, fatigue. These kind of conditions can be expected because instead of carrying 4 oxygen molecule, the hemoglobin is carrying only 2 oxygen molecule or 1 oxygen molecule or 3 oxygen molecule less than the normal. So we get less oxygen support because of under low oxygen partial pressure. This is the application which which is there in this area. Very few applications we have in this chapter. So that's I should focus here like this. Okay. Now moving on. Gradually, we acclimatize the situation and the body compensate low oxygen availability by increasing RBC and breathing rate and decreasing the binding capacity of hemoglobin. That's what we called it as people who settle there. They have the condition called polycythemia. Moving on to the behavioral adaptation. On screen, you can see the lizard basking under the sun. Desert lizards bask in the sun and absorb the heat when their body temperature is low, but move into shade when the ambient temperature start increasing. We call this as partial regulate. In the graph, we can show like this: partially regulate. I do remember here once regulate line will come external and internal level. Confirmer will come like this. This is partial regulate. Okay. Some species are capable of burrowing into the soil to hide and escape from the above ground heat. So that's it about the organisms. Now we move with populations. In organisms and populations, we are completed organisms, and now we are moving with populations.